Elias Marlowe had expected the evening to end with reheated stew, a broken irrigation drone, and blessed silence. That was the entire appeal of living on a forgotten farm at the edge of Commonwealth space. No noise, no politics, no responsibilities. Just plants, dirt, and the occasional argument with malfunctioning equipment. He did not expect the galaxy to arrive at his front door. 3 sharp knocks cut through the quiet dusk, purposeful, measured, military. Elias frowned, wiped dust from his hands, and opened the door. And the world tilted. A woman stood on his porch, tall, statuesque, almost unreal. Obsidian black armor traced with violet circuits wrapped around her form like liquid metal. Her skin carried a faint inner glow, as if light lived beneath it. Tendrils of crimson hair drifted in the soft breeze, but not like ordinary hair. They shimmered with microscopic luminous fibers, rippling gently as though low gravity clung to her. Then he met her eyes, twin amethyst cores swirling with living starlight, his breath caught. The woman, alien, breathtaking, overwhelmingly present, studied him with a hunter's stillness. Elegant facial markings traced across her cheekbones, glowing faintly in rhythmic pulses he couldn't interpret. "You are Elias Marlowe," she said, not a question, a verdict. Yes," Elias managed. She inclined her head, the gesture sharp but respectful. "I am Commander Vala Soren of the Astrix Dominion." Elias nearly choked. The Astrix Dominion was a name spoken in the same tone as incoming storms, beautiful, distant, and deeply dangerous. Their commanders were legendary, tactical savants, warriors shaped by a culture that worshipped precision and feared nothing. And one of them, one undeniably, impossibly beautiful one, was standing between his tomato crates and Mrs. Reeson's decorative butterfly lanterns. "I think," Elias said carefully, "you may have the wrong farm, or the wrong human, or the wrong universe." No, Vala stepped closer. Her presence felt like a gravitational field, subtle pressure, subtle pull. "I have searched 17 years and 3 sectors to find you." Elias blinked rapidly. 17 what? "You saved my life on Rios Delta." He opened his mouth, closed it again, then made a small, helpless sound that could have been a question. Vala lifted her hands slightly. A holographic projection ignited, a silver-furred creature lying wounded among rocks, crystalline patches dull with toxin. Beside it knelt a much younger Elias, hands steady as he administered an improvised antidote. Elias' heart dropped. "That," he swallowed. "That was a creature, a local predator. It was beautiful and dying and terrified." "It was me," Vala replied simply. "Primal combat form, poisoned, alone, fading." Elias looked at the hologram again, at those glowing, intelligent eyes, and memory slammed into place. "Oh, a beat, oh no. A longer beat. I talked to you, I remember explaining what I was doing, out loud, to a wounded alien wolf thing. You assumed I understood none of it," Vala said softly. "You were incorrect." Elias covered his face with both hands. "Stars above. You understood everything I said, didn't you? Your attempts to reassure me were curious," she admitted. "But the treatment you synthesized was effective. Without it, I would not have survived." He lowered his hands slowly. And she was still there, beautiful, radiant, deadly, very real. "So," Elias said weakly, "you're here to thank me." "No," Vala replied. Her voice lowered, gaining a gravity that prickled across his skin. "I am here to repay the life debt." Life debt? Elias felt the words like cold water down his spine. "A strict law binds me to honor the one who saved my life," Vala continued. "The debt is sacred, ancient, and it can only be fulfilled through wealth, allegiance." Her eyes rested on him, glowing brighter. "Or the highest offering, naming you as my bond warden." Elias nearly fell over. "Bond what?" "No, wait, hold on. It is a role of equal authority," Vala explained. "Advisor, partner, protector of my judgment and conscience." "That sounds like a lot." "It is," she said. "The bond is not casual." "Is it permanent?" A pause. A flicker of violet light traced down her markings. "It is enduring," she said, instead of answering directly, which somehow was more intimidating. Elias backed up and sat down heavily on the nearest crate. "Commander, I'm a farmer now. I fix irrigation tubes and argue with drones. This is a mix-up." "There is no mix-up." Her gaze sharpened. "But your acceptance is not required." "Oh, thank you." "However," she continued, "rejection does not remove danger." Elias stilled. "Danger." Vala stepped toward the window, scanning the darkening tree line. Her hair's bioluminescent strands glimmered like drifting embers. "Your colony has been under observation since first light," she said quietly. Not by my people. Elias' blood chilled. Observation, he whispered, by who? There are figures in both our governments who do not want this debt fulfilled. Her voice was calm, too calm. They see it as destabilizing. They will interfere. Persuasion, coercion, or elimination. Elias swallowed hard. Elimination as in. As in termination, Vela said gently, as if breaking difficult news to a friend. And if you reject the bond, they may delay, but they will not forget. Elias stared at her, heart pounding. And if I accept? Vela turned to him fully. The porch lights caught her armor. Her markings glowed in soft pulse rhythms. Her hair drifted like living nebula. She was beautiful in a way that felt unreal and ancient and dangerous and somehow reassuring. If you accept, she said, I protect you, all of you, against all of them. Silence pressed on the room. Elias exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. This wasn't the evening I planned, he muttered. Vela's head tilted slightly. Neither was it mine. The last traces of twilight faded behind Kesari Ridge, leaving the colony quiet, shadowed, and deceptively peaceful. Elias stood beside Vela on his porch as the night settled around them, listening to the rhythmic chirping of nocturnal insects, familiar noises that suddenly felt too small for the situation unfolding. Observation since dawn, Elias repeated, voice unsteady. How long have you known? Since I entered the system. Vela's answer was calm, as though discussing weather. And you didn't tell me earlier? Elias asked. You were still absorbing my arrival, she replied. Your nervous system was already overwhelmed. I wasn't that overwhelmed. You dropped a tool when you saw me, she reminded him. Okay, fair. Vela stepped off the porch, scanning the open fields. Her armor adjusted silently, plates shifting to a more defensive configuration. Bioluminescent light pulsed faintly beneath her skin patterns, flowing like constellations moving under the surface. To Elias, she looked like something carved from starlight and tempered in war. To anyone watching from the tree line, she looked like a warning. Commander, Elias whispered, are they watching us right now? Vela's eyes glowed in the dark. Yes. His stomach twisted. What do we do? We make their surveillance unproductive. What does that mean? It means, she said, you go inside and I do my work. Her voice had gained that clinical strength again, professional, lethal, focused. I'm not leaving you alone out here with whatever they are. Vela looked over her shoulder at him. For a moment, the warrior facade softened. You are not leaving me, she said. You are allowing me to shield you. That is different. Elias hesitated. He wanted to protest. He wanted to help. He wanted to not feel so powerless next to someone who seemed carved from destiny itself, but his survival instincts were louder than his pride. Fine. Just don't get shot. I do not intend to. Inside the house, Elias hovered near the window and watched the faint glow of Vela's markings as she walked the perimeter. Each step was precise, each motion silent. She didn't simply move, she disturbed nothing. Even the grass shifted around her feet rather than beneath them. What are you doing? He whispered through the cracked window, establishing a boundary. Like a fence, a perimeter. Can you be slightly less vague? No, Elias shut the window quietly. Okay then. He watched anyway. Vela's movements were hypnotic, slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial. She placed small metallic nodes into the ground, each emitting a faint pulse of violet light that synced with the glow on her skin. The air around her shimmered like heat haze. Elias realized he wasn't watching a simple security sweep. He was watching the formation of something ancient, ritualistic, a tradition older than governments, older than the war between their species. This was an Astrix life debt perimeter, and she was building it for him. A foreign warmth tightened his chest, gratitude, fear, and something he couldn't name. A sudden knock at the front door jolted him. Elias flinched. Vela. She knows, a voice murmured outside. Elias crept toward the door, heart racing, and opened it a crack. Administrator Rowan stood there, middle-aged, nervous, and deeply out of breath. Behind him, 2 colony guards hovered awkwardly, clearly wishing they were somewhere else. Marlowe, Rowan hissed, why isn't a Strix commander prowling around your field? Long story. We need the short version, immediately. Elias stepped outside, lowering his voice. She says I saved her life 17 years ago. Rowan blinked. As what? A glowing crystal wolf thing, Elias said helplessly. She shifted forms. Rowan rubbed his temples, and she came here because there's something called a life debt. The administrator swore under his breath. One of the colony guards, Markle the youngest, leaned closer. Is it true she's, claiming you? Elias froze. Not claiming, she said something about a bond warden. Both guards turned pale. Rowan nearly fainted. A bond warden. Elias, that is not a small cultural gesture. That's a political earthquake. I told her she had the wrong human. Clearly she disagreed. A loud crack echoed from the tree line. All three men jumped. What was that? Markle whispered. Wildlife, the other guard offered weakly. But Elias saw Vela stiffen across the field, her glowing tattoos dimming then flaring sharply. That wasn't wildlife. Vela's voice projected across the field. Administrator Rowan. Step away from Elias Marlowe. Rowan blinked. What, why? Another crack sounded. Closer. Vela moved fast, fluid, too swift for the human eye to fully track. In 3 strides, she was between them and the tree line, stance low, arms raised. Elias felt his breath freeze. Her eyes flared bright violet. Inside, she ordered without looking back. Now. But, inside, Elias grabbed Rowan and the guards by their jackets and pulled them in with him, slamming the door shut. Silence. Then a faint metallic sound, a click sharp and deliberate echoed from outside. Vela exhaled once. First warning, she called into the darkness. Her voice was not loud, but the land seemed to hold its breath. No one responded. Another metallic click answered instead. Vela's markings flared to full brightness. Understood. Elias pressed against the window, heart pounding, watching her face shift. Soft alien beauty sharpening into something terrifying yet exquisite. An Astrix commander preparing for combat. Elias, Rowan whispered shakily, what is she doing? Protecting us, Elias murmured. Vela raised one hand, the air around her fractured, soundlessly. The violet dome shimmered faintly over Elias' farm, stretching across the fields like an inverted bowl of starlight. From inside the farmhouse, it cast moving patterns of purple light across the wooden floor, as though the universe itself were breathing. Elias stood frozen at the window. Administrator Rowan and the 2 colony guards hovered behind him in horrified silence. Outside, Vela didn't move. She stood with the stillness of a statue carved from celestial iron, one hand raised, palm glowing faintly, every muscle locked with lethal focus. Her crimson hair drifted around her like slow-burning embers. What is she? Rowan whispered. Elias didn't answer because he was watching something he couldn't fully process. Vela wasn't simply preparing for a fight, she was inviting one. A shadow shifted at the tree line, then another, then a third, not animals, not colonists, not anything on the registration roster. Vela's voice rang out, calm, cold, and devastatingly controlled. Step away from the boundary. What? No one stepped away. Something metal glinted in the darkness. Markle, the youngest guard, let out a strangled sound. Is that a... Yes, Vela murmured softly. It is. Elias wasn't sure how she could see what they couldn't. But he no longer questioned anything she did. A hum vibrated through the ground as the violet dome thickened. The air crackled. Elias felt the hair on his arms rise. Rowan stumbled back from the window. This is escalating too quickly. This is unacceptable. This is... It's necessary, Elias said quietly. He didn't recognize his own voice. It was steadier than he felt. A flash of blue light shot out from the tree line. A weapon discharge, fast. Deadly, but it never touched Vela. The bolt hit the dome and disintegrated in a shower of harmless sparks. Rowan gasped. They fired on her, they fired on us. Vela didn't flinch. Instead, she turned her head, not rapidly, not in shock, but with the slow, deliberate certainty of a predator acknowledging prey. Second warning, she announced. The tree line went still. Elias pressed his hand against the window. Vela, don't step out of the barrier. They want you exposed. I am aware, she replied. Another bolt struck the dome, stronger, testing, probing. The barrier rippled like disturbed water. Vela exhaled, a long, steadying breath. Her markings burned brighter, moving in patterns Elias had never seen, intricate, ancient, mesmerizing. For a moment, he forgot to be afraid. Then Vela lowered her hand. The dome tightened around the property, shrinking to a smaller, denser sphere. What is she doing now? Rowan whispered. Concentrating the war field, Elias murmured. She's preparing a countermeasure. Rowan grabbed Elias' shoulder. Tell her to stop this. If she retaliates, we'll have a diplomatic incident. Elias gently removed Rowan's hand. I don't think she's planning to attack, he said softly. Then what? Vela lifted her gaze toward the tree line. Final warning, she said. The forest rustled. Something or someone shifted position. Then, a third bolt, brighter and faster than the others, streaked through the air. It slammed into the dome, flaring. And Vela moved, finally. She extended her hand. The bolt stopped, not in the barrier, not midair, but between her fingers, held, suspended, captured as if frozen in amber. Rowan screamed. Markle dropped his weapon. The second guard swore under his breath. Elias could only stare. The energy bolt pulsed weakly in Vela's hand, struggling, dissolving against her skin like rain against fire. Vela closed her fingers around it. The bolt went out with a soft sound, like a candle being pinched. She opened her hand. Nothing remained. "Your weapons are uncalibrated for a strict shielding," she said, her voice projecting with flawless clarity. "Cease your attempts." Silence, then movement. 3 silhouettes bolted deeper into the trees. Vela didn't chase them. She simply watched, not with triumph, not with anger, with disappointment. Then she turned and walked back toward the house. Elias backed away from the window instinctively as she approached. The door opened smoothly and Vela stepped inside, the violet light fading from her markings as the warfield dimmed. "You're hurt," Elias blurted. "I am not." But a faint burn mark scorched the armor near her shoulder plate. "You are," Elias insisted. "They hit you before you raised the barrier, didn't they?" Vela hesitated, a flicker barely perceptible. "Yes," she admitted. Elias swallowed hard. He'd seen her terrifying a moment ago, radiant, lethal, unstoppable, but now he saw something else beneath the surface, something human, something she didn't show lightly. Rowan found his voice again, unfortunately. "This is a disaster, a nightmare," he sputtered. "Commander Soren, the colony charter strictly forbids defensive war fields and engaging hostiles without notifying." Vela raised one hand, not threatening, just enough to silence him. "You were in imminent danger," she said calmly. "Protocol permits immediate action." "You escalated." "I defended," Vela corrected. Her tone was frost and steel. "And if I had not, your colony would be removing bodies from the dirt right now. Possibly yours." Rowan shut his mouth. "Good." Vela turned to Elias. "We must talk." His heart hammered. "About the attackers." "About who sent them," she said. "And about what they want." Elias' breath caught. "Me." "Yes." Rowan took a shaky step back. "Wait, are you saying this wasn't a random incident?" "No," Vela said. "This was a test." "A test for what?" Elias whispered. Vela held his gaze. "For how quickly I would defend you, and how far I am willing to go." Elias felt cold spread down his spine. "And," he asked, "what did the attackers learn?" Vela studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "That I did not fail the test." A pause, "But that you may not survive the next one." Elias' pulse exploded in his ear. The blinking red light in the forest pulsed twice more before vanishing into darkness. Elias felt the room tilt under him. Rowan clutched the doorframe, Markle muttered a curse, and Vela stood like a carved monument facing the glass. "That signal," Elias whispered. "What did it mean?" Vela didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lifted her hand and reactivated the war field. The violet dome shimmered back into existence, thicker now, warmer in color, more protective than threatening. Only when the barrier sealed with a soft hum did she turn toward them. "It means," she said slowly, "that the observers have passed their assessment." "Assessment?" Rowan sputtered. "What assessment? This isn't an evaluation, this is an attack." "It was a probe," Vela corrected. "Nothing more." "Nothing, they were armed." "Yes, poorly." She looked back at the forest, "which is why they retreated." Elias stepped closer. "You knew they were testing something about you, about the bond. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Vela looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time he saw hesitation behind her luminous eyes. Not fear, not weakness, but calculation. "I did not wish to influence your choice," she said. "My choice of what?" Elias demanded. Vela's gaze flickered downward for a heartbeat. "Of whether to accept the bond." The room fell silent. Rowan paled. "This again, Commander Soren, with all due respect, this colony cannot host an Astrix bond ceremony. It puts us at direct political risk." Vela didn't even glance at him. Her focus remained entirely on Elias. "You must understand," she said softly. "The attack was not meant to kill you." Elias blinked. "You said I was in danger." "You are," her voice deepened, strangely gentle. "But the ones who fired tonight were not the true assassins." Elias' stomach dropped. "So who were they?" "Messengers," Vela said, "sent to measure my reaction." Elias exhaled shakily. "And what reaction did they want?" "To see whether I would defend you or step aside." Markle stiffened, "Meaning they wanted to know if she'd abandon you." "That is correct," Vela said. "And because you didn't," Elias whispered, "they'll escalate." "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair. "Vela, who exactly are they?" Vela's jaw tightened. The opposition exists on both sides, she said, human and a Strix. Rowan staggered back. Humans are involved, why? Because, Vela said calmly, your government benefits from sustained tension with mine. Elias felt a cold knot form in his chest. They profit from the conflict, Vela continued, as do certain Strix factions. Peace would cost them power. Cooperation would cost them influence. And the life debt? Elias asked quietly. Symbolically catastrophic, she replied. An Strix commander binding herself to a human by choice undercuts every narrative of enmity they have crafted for 2 decades. Rowan collapsed into a chair. We're dead, we're absolutely dead. Incorrect, Vela said, turning to him. You are under my protection. As long as the bond remains unfulfilled, you remain at moderate risk. Moderate, Rowan squeaked. Vela gestured toward Elias. When the bond is fulfilled, she said, that risk decreases. Elias stared at her. So you're telling me that the only way to reduce the danger is to accept a permanent political alien magical ancient warrior life debt bond with you? Yes, Vela answered simply. As I stated earlier. The colony guards exchanged a look that communicated, this man is doomed. Elias paced, running both hands through his hair. This is insane, he muttered. I grow tomatoes. I fix irrigation lines. I don't negotiate with clandestine political factions. You did 17 years ago, Vela said. Elias stopped, turned, stared. That was different, he said. You shielded a wounded creature under active fire, she replied. You synthesized an antidote from flora you had never studied. You risked your life for something you did not understand. Her voice softened. You have always been this person. Elias swallowed hard. That doesn't mean I'm ready to join some alien political order. You would not be joining them, Vela said. You would be balancing them. He blinked. I'm sorry, what? Vela stepped closer, stopping only when she was a breath away from him. Her bioluminescent markings cast soft light across his face. A bond warden is not decoration, she said. It is counsel, it is anchor. It is the individual who prevents the commander from losing perspective. Her voice lowered. It is the one the commander trusts most. Elias' breath caught. Rowan made a small coughing noise, half discomfort, half awe. Markle whispered, are they like flirting? Vela's eyes flashed. Silence. Markle shut up instantly. Elias exhaled, forcing himself back to focus. Okay, let's say I consider this. What happens next? First, Vela said, we stabilize the colony. I must determine whether tonight's attackers were independent agents or part of a larger coordinated strike. And second, you choose. Elias hesitated. Choose what? The direction of your life, she said quietly. Whether you return to anonymity or accept a place beside me. The room held its breath. Before Elias could respond, the warfield flickered, just for half a second. Vela's head snapped toward the window. Elias froze. Rowan yelped. Markle grabbed his weapon despite knowing it was useless. What was that? Elias whispered. Vela's markings dimmed into a predatory pattern. A breach attempt, she said. Far more sophisticated than the earlier one. Her eyes narrowed. They have begun the second test. Elias stepped closer. Vela. The warfield pulsed violently as something massive slammed into it, shaking the entire farmhouse. Cups rattled along the shelves. The floorboards groaned. Rowan dropped to his knees with a panicked wail. Vela didn't flinch. Her bioluminescent markings burned brighter, sharp, angular streaks flooding her skin like living circuitry preparing for overload. The room dimmed under the glow. Everyone away from the windows, Vela ordered. The guards obeyed instantly. Rowan tried but mostly crawled in circles. Elias stayed where he was, his eyes locked on Vela. What's hitting the barrier? Elias managed. Vela stepped toward the door. Not a creature, a weapon. A weapon shaped like a battering ram. Something similar. The warfield shuddered again, harder this time. A faint crack slithered across the dome, just a hairline fracture, but enough to send a bolt of terror through Elia's chest. Vela raised her arm, her gauntlet expanding as segments clicked into place. A pale sphere of energy formed around her forearm. Stay inside until I give instruction, she said. Elias took a step forward. Vela, wait. What if whoever is doing this wants you outside the dome? They do, she replied calmly. That is why I am not leaving. Elias blinked. You're staying inside. She stopped at the threshold. Then she turned her hand. The house lights flickered. The air thickened. And for the first time, Elias saw it. Vela's Strix combat form beginning to unfold. Not a full shift, not like the primal wolfish form she once took, but a controlled hybrid state, her pupils elongated. Her markings flared, moving in synchronized patterns. Her armor plates shifted, locking into denser, heavier arrangements. Her hair lifted as if gravity itself bent around her. It was terrifying, it was beautiful. It was impossible to look away. "Elias," she said without turning, "stand behind me." Her voice vibrated with something new, something deeper. He moved before thinking. The barrier shook again, the crack spread. Rowan let out a sob. "We're going to die. We're all going to." Vela raised her free hand. A ripple of a Strix energy washed through the room, and Rowan fell silent, not unconscious, simply calm in a way that defied logic. What did you just do?" Elias whispered. "Stability pulse," Vela said. "Temporary emotional alignment. Humans respond strongly." "You calmed him by force." "He was distracting." Markle muttered, "I wish I could do that at staff meetings." Then the dome shattered. Not fully, just a section near the tree line, splintering like glass struck by a hammer. A hole the size of a door rippled open, crackling with violet sparks. Through it, Elias saw metal limbs, segmented plating, red optics, and a weaponized exoshell unmistakably not built by colonists. Rowan's eyes bulged. That's Commonwealth tech." Vela didn't look surprised. "They have begun cooperating," she said. Elias felt something hot ignite in his chest. "Humans," Elias whispered. "They're working with the Strix factions trying to kill you." "No," Vela corrected coldly. "They are working with the Strix factions trying to kill you." Before Elias could process the horror of that sentence, the machine lurched forward, forcing itself through the breach. Vela moved. She didn't leap. She didn't run. She shifted, disappearing from one spot and reappearing in another so quickly Elias' eyes couldn't track it. Her gauntlet made contact with the exoshell chest plate. A burst of violet energy exploded outward. The machine staggered back, metal glowing white-hot where she'd struck it. A second machine pushed through the breach, sleeker, darker, with articulated blades emerging from its wrists. Elias grabbed Rowan and pulled him behind the kitchen island. Markle raised his weapon uselessly. Do I shoot?" "No," Elias yelled. "You'll hit her." Vela spun, an elegant, deadly arc, her blade snapping into existence from her gauntlet. A single slash carved the second machine in half. Metal sparked across the dirt. The first machine recovered, firing a burst of kinetic rounds. The shots ricocheted off Vela's armor, some absorbed, others bouncing into the ground. The warfield flickered dangerously. The breach widened, and from the darkness, 3 more machines sprinted toward the property. Elias' breath stalled. There are more. Vela's markings pulsed violently. Their intention is to overwhelm the barrier with mass. Can they? Yes. Elias felt his chest tighten. "Vela, we need a plan." She didn't look back, but her voice softened for just a fraction of a second. "I have one." She extended her hand, palm toward the ground. A deep hum filled the air. The house trembled. Elias felt warmth on his skin like standing near a bonfire, but not painful. "What are you doing?" he asked. Vela closed her eyes. "Expanding the bond field." Elias' eyes widened. "But I haven't accepted." "I am not forming the bond," she said, breath steadying, "but its shadow." A pulse of violet expanded outward, picking up dust, lifting leaves, twisting the air. "Everyone remain still," Vela commanded. Elias obeyed. The pulse erupted across the property, stretching farther than the warfield ever had. The machines crossing the boundary froze mid-stride, limbs locking like statues, optics flickering violently. Markle gasped, What's happening to them?" Elias knew before Vela said it. "They can't cross a protobond field," Vela murmured. Rowan stared at her in awe. "Meaning?" "Meaning they built their strategy assuming Elias Marlowe was unbound," Vela said, finally turning toward him. "But even the echo of what he might become is enough to stop them." Elias felt lightheaded. He also felt something else. Something warm. Something like a connection pulling taut between the two of them, like an invisible line humming under the skin. "Vela," he whispered, "are you okay?" She exhaled slow, heavy. Her markings dimmed to a soft glow. "I will be," she said, "but the protobond field drains energy. I cannot hold it long." "What happens when it drops?" Vela looked at the frozen machines. "They move again." "And what do we do then?" Vela stepped toward him, close, too close. Her breath was warm on his skin. "Then," she said quietly, "we run a counter-operation." Elias swallowed, "Which is?" "We track the source of the signal," Vela replied, "because these attackers are not here to eliminate you." Elias blinked. They're not. Vela shook her head. They're here, she said. To force your decision. Elias' breath caught. They want to see whether you will accept the bond, Vela finished, or die refusing it. And just as the last of the protobond glow faded from her markings, the machine's optics reignited. Red, bright, hungry, Vela raised her weapon. Stay behind me. The machine's optics flared red as the protobond field faded. Their limbs jerked, systems rebooting, weapons reorienting toward the farmhouse. Vela stepped in front of Elias, body angled protectively, markings pulsing like molten constellations beneath her skin. Elias, she murmured, when the machines advance, we move. Move where? To the source. Another pulse hammered the warfield, a metallic shriek. Vela turned slightly, her eyes glowing in the violet haze. Elias, trust me. He didn't hesitate. He nodded, Vela's stance tightened. Now. The machines lunged. Vela grabbed Elias' wrist, firm, warm, and sprinted toward the barn door. The machines fired, kinetic rounds slamming into the warfield behind them as Vela dragged Elias across the field with absurd speed. Rowan's distant scream faded behind them. Should we tell them? Elias gasped. They will be safe inside the house. You will not be safe anywhere. Comforting. It was not meant to be. She led him past irrigation lines and tall stalks of grain until they reached the edge of the forest. Vela slowed, scanning the darkness. Here. Elias heard nothing. Then the ground beneath them shifted, softly, subtly. A buried signal transmitter, small, sleek, and unmistakably advanced. Is that? Elias began. Human-made, Vela finished bitterly. Modified with a Strix encryption. He knelt, brushing soil from the casing. Why hide it on my property? Because the attack was staged to look like a Strix aggression, Vela said, and your death would justify retaliation. Elias froze. Someone wanted a war, he whispered. Vela nodded once. Someone on both sides. They stared at the device. For a moment, the universe felt too large, too cold for one small farm, too dangerous for one human life. Elias stood slowly. So what now? Now, Vela said, we dismantle the operation. How? Vela tapped her gauntlet. A holographic projection flickered to life. A map of the forest around the colony. 3 red markers blinked. Command nodes, she said. This transmitter relays to them. Destroy the nodes and the machines go inert. Okay, Elias said, breath shaking. But they'll be guarded. Yes, and dangerous. Yes, and we have to get close. Yes, Elias took a long breath. Then let's go. Vela blinked once slowly, as though his answer surprised her. You are choosing to join the engagement. I'm choosing, Elias said, voice trembling but steady, to stop running. A faint pulse of light rippled across Vela's markings, and a Strix expression Elias hadn't seen before. It looked like pride, then stay close. They moved. The forest swallowed them in a thick curtain of night. Vela led the way, weaving silently through the trees. Elias followed, adrenaline sharpening every sound, the whisper of leaves, the hum of distant machines. The first command node sat atop a ridge, guarded by 2 exoshells scanning the perimeter. Vela crouched beside him. Remain here. No, Elias said. You can't do this alone. I have done everything alone, Vela said quietly. For many years. Elias looked at her and saw more than armor and alien light. He saw exhaustion, burden, expectations she never asked for. Not anymore, he whispered, her eyes softened. Then give me the advantage. How? Elias studied the node, wires exposed at the base, connected to a crystalline core. Those machines calibrate to dense energy signatures, right? Yes, Elias exhaled. Then they'll hate this. He picked up a stone, aimed, and hurled it at the far side of the ridge. It clattered loudly. The machines swiveled instantly, moving toward the distraction. Vela moved with them. She struck the first machine with a blow that crushed its core in a burst of violet blue light. The second fired, but Vela's blade deflected the shot, sending it into a tree that exploded in splinters. 3 seconds later, both machines were in pieces. Elias hurried to the node and ripped the exposed conductor from its housing. The crystalline core went dark. 1 down, Elias whispered. 2 remain. They moved again, faster this time. At the second node, the forest fell eerily silent. Vela froze mid-step. Do not move. Elias stiffened. What? A shifting pattern of light shimmered in the air. Then it materialized. Not a machine, not a soldier, but a humanoid figure clad in a Strix armor, sleek, elite, unmistakably high-ranking. Elias' breath vanished. Is that? Yes, Vela whispered. a Strixean Inquisitor. The Inquisitors were legends, deadly internal enforcers of a strict law, ruthless, unstoppable, unsent unless the matter threatened the Dominion itself. The Inquisitor's voice cut the silence. "Commander Vela Sorin," it said, "you defy directive. You violate command law. You pursue an unapproved debt." Vela stepped in front of Elias. "The debt predates command law, and I will fulfill it. You shame the Dominion. I honor it. You align with a human. I align with truth." The Inquisitor's head tilted. Then the human dies, the debt dies with him. Elias felt the forest tighten around him. Vela spoke first. "You will not touch him." The Inquisitor raised its weapon. "Then you die defending him." Vela didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't breathe. Elias stepped forward. "Don't," Vela whispered harshly, but he did, because fear was no longer the loudest voice in him. "Why?" Elias demanded. "Why kill me? Why kill her? Why maintain this fake conflict?" The Inquisitor regarded him as one might a curious insect. "War is stability, division is structure, peace is chaos." Elias shook his head. "No, peace is possibility. It is weakness." "Then your Dominion is weaker than you think," Elias said. "Because the strongest person I've met stood in front of me, protected me, and chose empathy over orders." The Inquisitor's glow sharpened. "You influence her." Elias didn't look away. "I challenge her, that's different." "Unacceptable." The Inquisitor moved. Fast, too fast. Vela intercepted, blade clashing against blade in a burst of sparks. The forest lit up in flashes of violet and steel as the two warriors collided, silent, lethal, impossibly swift. Vela fought like a storm. The Inquisitor fought like precision made flesh. Elias saw the second node behind them, unguarded, and realized the Inquisitor was a distraction. The real kill order was to keep the node active so more machines would converge. "Vela!" Elias shouted. The node. She couldn't disengage, not without taking a blade through the heart. Elias sprinted toward the device. Elias, no. He didn't stop. The Inquisitor snapped its head toward him, too late. Elias grabbed the node's core and slammed it against a rock. The crystalline structure shattered. The node went dark. A shockwave burst outward, knocking Elias to his knees. The Inquisitor staggered, momentarily disoriented. Vela didn't waste the opening. Her blade pierced its chest. Light erupted. And the Inquisitor collapsed, not dead, disabled, but defeated. Vela ran to Elias, grabbing his shoulders. "Are you injured?" I'm fine," he breathed. "Mostly terrified." Vela exhaled shakily. Relief real and raw. "You should not have done that." "It worked, didn't it? You risked